California Senator Alex Padilla is on the Judiciary Committee and will be in that meeting with the President and Vice President today. Senator, thanks for taking the time with us. You just heard Justice Sotomayor. How does the President need to tackle this threat, as she puts it, of Americans questioning the legitimacy of the Supreme Court as he's working to confirm a new justice?
Yeah, well, thank you, Anna, for having me. Looking forward to the meeting this afternoon. And I think the president has already done a good job of trying to set the tone. If you recall, just last week, he met with both the chair of the Judiciary Committee, Senator Durbin from Illinois, and the ranking member of the committee, Senator Grassley from Iowa. So bipartisan from the get-go. And I think a lot of us are going to be working to try to keep the tone and the tenor of the eventual confirmation hearings not partisan, focused on substance. And again, the great news, I'm personally thrilled the president is living up to the pledge he made as a candidate to nominate a Black woman to the Supreme Court. A lot of more than qualified women to choose from. And when we get to those confirmation hearings, we'll keep it on record, we'll keep it on substance, we'll keep it on the rule of law.
And so let's talk about some of the names that have been discussed as potential candidates here. We've heard about a dozen potential names, but three have really floated to the top. D.C. Circuit Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, she's 51 years old, already been through the vetting process to be confirmed in her current role, and she clerked for Justice Breyer, in fact. There's also California Supreme Court Justice Leondra Kruger. Kruger's now 45, was the youngest person to be appointed to California Supreme Court. She clerked for Justice Stevens. And South Carolina U.S. District Court Judge Michelle Childs, we know she has the backing of House Majority Whip James Clyburn, a key Biden ally, as well as Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Do you already have a clear person in mind of who you want the president to pick?
Look, I want to be respectful of the process. I have no doubt that whoever President Biden ultimately selects is going to be somebody that is more than qualified and will help make history. And I want to underscore that point, Anna. As you know, when I entered the Senate, I was the first Latino to represent California. And I can attest after my first year in the Senate, representation matters. What I'm able to contribute to the deliberations of the Senate, given my both professional and life experience, is important. And I'm looking forward to the next Supreme Court justice doing exactly the same in the highest court of the land. So the president will make a selection before the end of the month. That's the time frame that he has set. I'm eager that the committee is ready for a timely, expeditious, and proper review of that nominee, and that will be taking action in short order.
In terms of who it ends up being, I want to play you something Senator Graham said as he was doubling down on his desire for Judge Childs to be chosen. Listen to what he said about President Biden here.
If he wants a consensus candidate that can bring the country together, that can get Republican votes, and Michelle Childs is the nominee, I think that could all happen. But if he rejects her for a more liberal candidate, I think the chance of getting a lot of Republican votes is pretty limited, and it would be proof positive that the Joe Biden that ran as a centrist, more moderate candidate doesn't exist anymore.
Senator, how important is it that this pick has bipartisan support?
Look, I think it would be certainly a strong statement for the next Supreme Court justice to be confirmed on a bipartisan basis. But frankly, my sense is that that's going to be a question that Republicans have to answer. I repeat, no doubt President Biden will make a selection that is both historic in nature, but also an individual, a woman that is more than abundantly qualified. All these litmus tests or criteria that some Republicans are beginning to insinuate, let's make sure that we're consistent with how they've treated prior Supreme Court justices under prior administrations. Let's not have a double standard here. Whoever the nominee is, she deserves better. She deserves respect, and she deserves a professional confirmation hearing.
They certainly weren't calling for a consensus pick to unite the country when Trump put forward his 3 Supreme Court picks. I do want to ask you quickly about this new reporting of Trump's handling of White House records, documents that by law are supposed to be preserved. We know now Maggie Haberman is reporting that Trump literally flushed papers down the toilet. We have the CNN reporting that records of Trump's phone calls during the January 6th riot are missing from the White House documents that the committee has obtained, the January 6th committee so far. Is this something the DOJ needs to pursue?
Look, it's just the latest example of Donald Trump, now the former president, the defeated president, as President Biden refers to him. No one is above the law, not even him. So we will leave it to law enforcement officials, investigators, the Department of Justice, and everybody in between to pursue the facts and do what's proper.
Do you expect them to pursue it, to actually investigate it and potentially prosecute it?
If the facts are there, if the evidence are there, then accountability needs to be there. Nobody is above the law.
Senator Padilla, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. And we hope
to
have you join us again soon.
I look forward to it.